Hello, everybody. Welcome into the second episode of the Depressed Detroit Sports Show. I am your host, Zach. Welcome back. Like I said, got a very good episode on track for today. We got breaking down Dan Campbell, Matt Patricia, Bob Quinn, whole bunch of Lions stuff coming up. Hopefully you're excited. Well, let's get into it. So, is Dan Campbell the man for the Detroit Lions? Let's break it down. On January 20th, 2021, Dan Campbell was chosen by Sheila Ford Hamp to be the next play caller for the Detroit Lions. Campbell formerly played for the Lions before taking the reins from Matt Patricia, a rocket scientist and so-called defensive guru, an offshoot of the ever-so-long Bill Belichick tree. Despite learning from one of, if not the best coach in NFL history, Matt and his GM and long-term friend Bob Quinn were both fired after plunging the Lions further into the basement of the NFL. Patricia, the defensive coordinator for the New England Patriots, was hired the day after Nick Foles and the Philadelphia Eagles took down Patricia's Patriots in the 2018 Super Bowl. At the time, Patricia was considered to be the hottest name in the coaching carousel. Boy, were they wrong. Patricia's predecessor in Detroit was Jim Caldwell, who was fired after losing in the wildcard round at the Seahawks. Caldwell was told that if he did not improve from the year before, he would not be returning to the team the following year. Despite being the only coach to take the Lions to the wildcard since the 90s, Caldwell was let go. Quinn electing to bring in his long-term friend instead. When we launched our search for our next head coach, I wanted to find a leader who could take us to the next level. We have found that in Matt Patricia. This is Bob Quinn's statement after hiring Matt Patricia. Like many other promises made from the Lions front office during these times, it would never come to be. To give Quinn his credit, Patricia was the hottest name in the carousel like I stated earlier, and he had apparently interviewed with every single NFL team. You know that cheesy sports movie trope where the new coach comes into a team that's just been like pure dog shit? And he's a total hard ass to the team. He runs the players till they puke. They have hard practices, and boom! All of a sudden they're champions. Yada, 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 all that kind of stuff. Well, Patricia really tried to do this in Detroit. Only Patricia's efforts had the opposite effect of these old movies. The only thing he achieved by doing this was alienating the team's stars and pushing them out of town, and whipping on almost all of his draft picks. Patricia seemed to have some sort of superiority complex, clearly believing he knew how to build a winning football team from his time under Belichick. He knew what plays worked in the NFL, and this made his play calls very predictable. So much so that fans could even call full drives worth of plays as the offense took the field. So imagine how well opposing defenses and coaches could tell what we were running. His unwavering narcissism and pure refusal to make even the simplest of adjustments may have sealed him from never getting another head coaching job again. For example, in his last year as head coach in Detroit 2020, I believe it was against the Titans. We were down, I believe it was 10 points coming out of the half. And what was Patricia's answer to the very first drive when you're down 10 points out of the second half? 5 straight run up the middle plays with Adrian Peterson that got us literally nowhere. When he was brought in, he was touted as a defensive guru that was going to revolutionize the Lions' defense and take us to the next level. Despite having all the experience he gained with the Patriots, the Lions had a bottom-tier defense the entire stint with the team, while simultaneously having a lackluster offense and making Matthew Stafford look like a bottom-10 quarterback, only for him to win a Super Bowl his first season he was traded out of Detroit. Okay, let me set the scene. It's September 2020, Lions versus Bears. 4 a week to play, Lions are up by 10, 23-13. Patricia calls for a 55-yard field goal, which clangs off the goalpost, giving the Bears excellent field position. Not to worry, however, I'm sure the defensive guru definitely has some plays up his sleeve to close this game out, right? No. The Lions lose that game 27-23 with yet another fourth quarter collapse for Patricia. With so many games ending in a way similar to this, a reporter asked if there's something about his coaching that just was not happening enough in the fourth quarter to cause these. Patricia answered, and I quote here, "Yeah, I don't think so, Mike. I think I've got probably the biggest play in all of the fourth quarter history in the NFL, where I think I did a pretty good job, so I don't think it's that." Before going on to put the blame on the fact that he has a different team the last 2 years and they have just got to be better. I would assume he's talking about they threw in the 1-yard line, where Malcolm Butler got the game-sealing interception off Russell Wilson in the Super Bowl. Which, if that doesn't prove how much of a narcissist he is, I just don't know what will. Like, I'm sorry, but I really doubt even Patricia thought they were going to pass it on the 1. All the glory of that play should go to Malcolm Butler. I'd like to switch it up a little bit. Instead of continuing on Matt Patricia, I'd like to bring Bob Quinn up. Lions fans often call Matt Millen the worst GM in Lions history. While I don't necessarily think Quinn is worse, he definitely is number 2. Like I stated earlier, one of Patricia's biggest problems was his narcissism. Well, of course, Quinn was the exact same and allowed Patricia to keep doing what he was doing. Since they spent so much time with a winning franchise, they obviously just knew what needs to be done to build a winning franchise. Everyone just needed to trust them. Trying to build a culture, they traded away key defensive pieces like Quandre Diggs and Darius Slay, which clearly didn't work, and in fact had the opposite effect, causing multiple players like Graham Glasnow, Marvin Jones Jr., Matt Prater, and Jamal Agnew to leave. I like to think TJ Hawkinson said it best. On the Bussin' with the Boys podcast on which he appeared, Hawkinson had a few things to say about playing under Matt Patricia versus playing under Campbell. I was this pick. Dude liked me. He didn't talk to me a ton outside of meetings or anything like that. Dude outside of that was cool. But when he got to meetings, he tried to be Belichick, like, alright man, this is what we have to do today. The hard way is the right way, which is true. On the same hand, there's a player vibe like with Campbell. Dude understands what it is. The hard way is still the right way. We're still going to practice hard and do hard things. But on the same hand, he's going to protect us in certain situations because he knows what it is. Hawkinson said, I think this explains the biggest differences between Patricia and Campbell. Campbell is everything Patricia was not. Patricia was not a player's coach. He had the technical knowledge, but he wasn't Bill Belichick. He tried very hard to emulate him in Detroit, and it just didn't work. Campbell, who still comes from a very respectable coaching tree of Sean Payton, but doesn't try to come in and be anything but Dan Campbell. If you've seen the first episode of Hard Knocks on HBO, one of the very first scenes was Dan doing 40 up-downs with the team. Patricia would have never done anything like this. Clear to me from watching Hard Knocks, Campbell truly does care about his players and wants nothing more than for them to be winners. Despite a lackluster season last year, I have nothing but faith for this year. Martha Ford has gone. Her daughter Sheila Ford Hamp will hopefully be a better owner for the team. Because at the end of the day, not winning a single Super Bowl and getting embarrassed almost every time you get into the playoffs since 1963, when the Fords bought the Lions, it's clearly an ownership issue. Also, wasting the career of arguably the most dominant running back and wide receiver to ever play the game, Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson, while also still owing Calvin Johnson $1.6 million, holding it back when he retired early. When I first heard about this, I was against Johnson getting the money since he retired early, but now my perspective has entirely flipped. At the end of the day, he's still the top two, and there is an argument to be made he is the best Lions player of all time. It's only $1.6 million, which it literally is chump change for the Fords, considering that they not only own the Detroit Lions, valued at over $2 billion, they also own the Ford Motor Company, which is valued at over $126 billion. The Lions did offer to pay him $500,000 a year until he reached how much he was owed, but in return he would have to do 30 hours of work for the team a year and make appearances for the team. To wrap this all up, I am nothing but excited for the next season. I like just about everything Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have recently done in Detroit. The drafting of Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, hopefully Malcolm Rodriguez and Aiden Hutchinson, Jameson Williams, while also getting multiple first-round picks for Matthew Stafford to hopefully turn into key pieces of the team. I love Dan Campbell and the energy he brings to the team. While I do agree he sometimes can be a little extra, for example, the biting kneecaps. However, I do think that he could be the person to take the Lions finally to the playoffs. I think the coaches and the players will actually want to win with him, and they actually will try their hardest, unlike with Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn. Hopefully this will change the landscape of Lions football forever. Finally, we can get out of the basement of the NFL and hopefully make a name for ourselves and show that we are finally here to play. We are not just a team that's going to be picking in the top 10 every year and not going to show anything for it, We need to make good choices with drafting, trades, free agents, everything, and I really hope that Dan Campbell is that man. Only time will tell if these two men can officially turn around the Detroit Lions football organization. I hope nothing more than for there to be a Super Bowl parade going down Woodward Avenue by next year after February. I mean, I don't think it'll happen next year, but realistically, it could happen in the next couple of years if Dan Campbell and the team turn it around. I don't think Jared Goff may not be the Super Bowl winning quarterback, or like he was with the Rams. He didn't win it with the Rams, but like Super Bowl quarterback that he was with the Rams. However, I do think that this is a prove-it year for him. I think it's a prove-it year for Jeff Okudah. I think it's a prove-it year for DeAndre Swift. We have one of the best lines in the league this year. I'm assuming we're going to have Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow. I don't know if it would be Vaitai at the other guard position. Of course, Penei Sewell at the other tackle. It's a very solid old line. We should at least be able to make some time for Jared Goff to throw the ball. Hopefully DeAndre Swift, who I think like they say in Hard Knocks, he's just one step away from being a franchise running back. And I think that he could take that step this year with a greatly improved offensive line. I think this year our biggest question mark is going to be our defense. And I think especially our secondary. I really hope Jeff Okudah can stay healthy for an entire season and prove that he was worth a number 3 pick. To be honest with you, I mean, obviously I hope this, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. It was a Matt Patricia pick and Bob Quinn, and they clearly missed drafting Jared Davis over TJ Watt, Tre'Davious White, just throw a few things out there. So it wouldn't surprise me, but I wish nothing best for the man, and I pray that he can be our number 1, maybe number 2 behind Amani Oruwariye. I like Deshaun Elliott. I like that signing a lot. I think that he will obviously be a key feature to this off our defense. And I like the re-signing of Tracy Walker. He's a solid safety. He'll be able to at least bridge the gap for a couple more years if he maybe takes a big step with Dan Campbell and his defensive and Aaron Glenn's defense. And, maybe this is just all same old Lions. This happens every time we get a new coach. You get real excited for a little bit. You have all this hype. Maybe they'll do this. Maybe they'll do that. And that very well could be what I'm doing here today. But I think, obviously, you have to have hope. What's the point of watching the team and rooting for the team if you don't have hope they're going to improve? I think we do have a competent, at least somewhat competent front office now with Brad Holmes. And I think Sheila Ford Hamp will be careful not to make the mistakes her mother and father did by rooting the Detroit Lions. Anyways, I just wanted to thank you all so much for checking out this second episode of the Depressed Detroit Sports Show. Of course, if you have not seen our other episode of the firing of Al Avila, or if you've not seen the other episode of the Fatty and the Jock, very first episode of that, me and one of my best friends sitting down for a little bit, talking a little bit about Lions football, a little bit about UFC, and a little bit about soccer. A little bit different, I know. But if you feel free to check it out, it's a really good episode, I think, and I think you'd really enjoy it. Of course, follow me over at YouTube, the Depressed Detroit Sports Show, if you want to see video versions of these and, maybe a little bit of extra stuff in the future. Of course, follow me over at Spotify, the Depressed Detroit Sports Show, over at Instagram, the same thing, all one word, the Depressed Detroit Sports Show. And thank you all so much for checking me out, and have a good rest of your day.